the West Tigers. So last year, finished 17th, a win-loss record of 6 wins, 18 losses, minus 287 points differential. All you out there know how much I love that little stat. I think it speaks volumes of the way the club has been run that year. Let's talk about their losses and gains. So their losses, Junior Tupu, Isaiah Papali'i, Aiden Caesar, John Bateman, Stefano Utoya Kamano, Solomon Alamalo, and Jaden Sullivan went last month to the Rabbitohs. For the gains, Jerome Luai from the Panthers, Sania Taruva, Panthers, Jarrell Skelton from the Bulldogs, Royce Hunt from the Sharkies, Jack Bird from the Dragons, and the big one, Terrell May from the Roosters, still in shock whenever we mention that signing. Let's throw to you, Jakey boy. Talking points for the Tigers. What's something that really sticks out to you as we're heading into this 2025 season?
What are the difference that I think the proven winners can make, like your Terrell May and your Jerome Luai? I think that's the biggest talking point is their impact around the camp in general, not just on the field but off the field, and see if that can change the culture around the club, because people have been trying and saying they're going to change the culture around the club for a really long time now, and it doesn't seem like anything's changed. And again, I sort of mentioned this last week, but after the chat that Luai spoke about, if I was there in the team last year, we would have made the 8. He's made it the team to watch. He's made that the team to watch for, like, will he be able to do it? I just think it's just going to be entertainment.
It's exciting, that's for sure. Trav, just on that, it is big statements, but I think we mentioned a little bit last week. It's refreshing, I guess, to hear that sort of arrogance, confidence coming out of the Tigers.
That's what they got Luai for, though, wasn't it? Yeah. To bring that winning mentality, bring that arrogance, lead the club, build the culture, set the example, tell the players what they need to do, pull them up when they're not doing what they should do. And that's also obviously, I think, the reason why Luai left the Panthers. Otherwise, why would you leave a juggernaut like that? Like, he wants to go and take that next step as to be a leader and change a club, and not just be the you get what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I got lost for words, but that's why he obviously went there, is for that new challenge that he had. He'd done everything he needed to do, and he was the second fiddle to that team, and as to obviously behind Cleary, and that's why they got him there. So it is refreshing, and as a Tigers fan and supporter, you should be very keen to hear those things. But at the end of the day, you got to say that. Like, that's what they have to do. So it's now about, and the big question that we should all be asking is, it's all talk now, but is that actually going to happen on the park?
Yeah, 100%. What about yourself, Trav? What's something that really sticks out to you when you talk about the Tigers and this upcoming season?
So I'll start with the incumbents. So we've got a lot of change at the Tigers. So and as you rightly mentioned at the start of this preview, is that there's been a lot of changes. So you've got Taruva out on a wing, you've got Skelton arriving, Royce Hunt's come to take Utukamono's position that has left. You've got obviously Luai that's there. Did I mention Taruva? You got Jack Bird arriving. You've got John Bateman leaving. So there's the incumbents and who have left is the story to be told, and how that can affect and what that can change and how long that takes. There's probably 6 guys that is about to go and take your start in 13. So that's almost half your start in 13 that has to find a way to gel in a matter of 3 months. So I'm just really keen, and Terrell May, sorry, I'm just really keen to see. And I think that's really important, that how quickly they gel, because we know what can happen when momentum strikes, right? Momentum can strike in both ways. Momentum can strike in a way of when you start winning, you're going to win and you catch that momentum, you're going to win a few games that you weren't probably expected to. But momentum can work in the other way, that when things don't go your way, a bit of gelling doesn't happen. You haven't quite got the team. You're not coached as well as it, which I'll talk about at another point. Momentum can also cause you to lose games and have problems. So hopefully that momentum picks up early, and they fixed the gelling issues. I think as much as we don't believe the trials is important, I think for the West Tigers, trials are bloody well important because there's so much that needs to happen for them to come and to improve. So my talking point is how these guys and what positions are. There's still a lot of questions around where they're actually going to play, who's going to play, what's going to happen. So my big point to talk about in this preview is around the incumbent players.
100%. It's a huge and very valid point that you bring up regarding the Tigers, and just they've brought in so much talent. It's going to take a bit of time to gel as well, and to actually make sure that they adapt to whatever it is, this playing style that they'll have this year. And when you've got all these quality players from other positions all coming into one, it's sometimes interesting to see who will take the backward step, because they've got maybe all of a sudden where they've had almost zero Chiefs to now having a team of 3 or 4 Chiefs, or guys who are very loud and vocal in a playing group and want that attention, and are happy to throw out those big one-liners that you've both already brought up. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds, and that's a storyline in itself. I'm really keen to see how that ends up evolving as we go into the season. The first one for me that I want to bring up, I guess, is into that. It's sort of Benji Marshall and where he plays this and how he conducts, I guess, his orchestra, his men, his soldiers, to go into battle. How will the West Tigers look this year? Because we all know the club's under a huge amount of pressure. They just simply haven't got it right now for 10, 15 years. It's just been ridiculous. And we can talk about the infighting all we want, but the big person that will lose his job if it doesn't go right to start with will be Benji Marshall. And we're very critical, and a lot of people out there question this whole appointment, how it all set up. Originally it was going to be Sheen's for 2 years, and then Benji walked into a job that was guaranteed 2.5 years in advance, and without even having coaching experience. And there's question marks still out there, and rightly so, because at the moment, has he delivered for a first grade coach? To be brutally honest, no. But this is the year. This is the year he has to deliver. He's got some of his soldiers that he wanted. He's got some of the quality players that most teams in this competition would die for. They would absolutely love to have a lot of these signings and probably walk into all their starting teams. So I'm really keen to see how Benji Marshall actually goes about sorting all this out. And huge pressure. I know that we've spoken about a couple of other coaches, but no doubt the more I think about it, Benji comes into this year probably one of the most under pressure coaches in the competition. Jake?
Oh, yeah, no, I fully and totally agree with that. Like, he's now had 2 years there, or 3? No, he's had 2 years there. He's had 2 years there, and yeah,
as the coach, this will be his second year.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why I thought he'd already had 2, but that's okay.
He was assistant coach.
He was assistant for 1 year before that.
Oh, right, true. Well, yeah. So the sort of, I suppose the big thing is he's sort of, their CEO came out and said, like, he's got the squad around him that he wants to. So he does. He's signed the people that the Tigers have got the people across that he wanted in the team, and so yeah, he's absolutely under pressure. He doesn't have an excuse to come last. I can tell you that much. He might be able to make an excuse if he gets up in like the 9th, 10th area, like just outside of the 8. But he doesn't really have any excuse for anything worse than that. And if that does happen, I don't see him sticking around for another year for sure.
Yeah, I think, and I've been a real negative or judging person of Benji Marshall. I think your first year is such an important year in your resume when you join a club. That's where you really got to stand your ground, stamp your authority, stamp your style. We should be able to walk around and go, okay, I can see Benji Marshall stamped here, and this is what's happened, right? You should be able to do that for every single club when you get it as your first year coach. To me, that's just a no-brainer. And I walk out of that and look at and review the West Tigers just clearly and see that I don't think there's anything that Benji Marshall improved or fixed in that 12 months that he was there. I don't think there was anything that he stepped on that stamped, other than the fact that maybe there was a little bit more professionalism around him telling his coaches and people and staff that we had to turn up in suits and look the part, to play the part. And that's about all I can see. So, I mean, at the end of the day, statistically, the West Tigers last year were the worst team in the competition. Like, if we put everything together, their differential was atrocious. What did you say? 287 minus 287. That's just pathetic. They were by far the worst defensive team for points scored against them at 750, with only Para before them. But they were still just under 40 points better than they were. That's potentially 2 games of more scoring against them on average, right? So it's just appalling. Defensively and discipline was just an atrocious year for the Tigers. They were by far the worst penalties conceded at 5.9 a game. They had the most sin bins for the competition. They were the second worst for errors at 10.1. Only Para was above them at 10. They're the 4th worst at 10.1. It's something needs to happen, and he's had his off season now. He's had his 12 months. He's changed his list. To me, defense and discipline is a really good start, particularly with a young list. Let's hope that Jerome Luai comes in and fixes that, because that's his bread and butter, right? He's as much as he's a pest, and as much as we think Jerome Luai is an asshole, he is incredibly disciplined, and he gets away with a lot of his stuff, and he's very good at doing that. So he's going to be able to pull those people in, and that's where he's got to start. And I think Benji Marshall's got a really big job on his hands, because, as you rightly said, Jake, if he doesn't get that list to the middle of the pack and contend. But I still don't think that's going to be good enough. He's still got to be able to pull a couple of wins here and there against some of these big teams. That's got to be important. He can't just go and beat up on the bottom 4 teams. He's got to be able to show a few big wins and show a game style and something against those teams to beat them once or twice during the year. Because if that doesn't happen and they don't get that sort of middle of the pack, he's, as you said, Joel, arse on the line.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think you mentioned it a little bit there. Discipline's a huge issue at that club at the moment, on and off the field, it seems. On the field, they had 16, I think, sin bins last year. You're not going to win many games when you've got 16 sin bins throughout the year. You're just giving oppositions too much of a leg up, too much of a head start, and you're hurting yourself. So you've got to make sure this off-season you really work hard on that discipline. Otherwise, you've got no chance of being a finals football team. Any other talking points that you boys want to raise when it comes to the West Tigers in the season ahead?
Nothing for me, mate. I think we covered that, bro.
So the last one for me before I just quickly get our realistic sort of season expectations, and we haven't mentioned it before, but just this whole behind-the-scenes crap, like this merger stuff is just getting to the point where it's just sad. And I'm not even a fan of the club. I just feel for their fans, because they're a merger. That's end of story. That's what it's going to be moving forward. I can't see it ever changing, to be realistic about it. Just get on board together. Like, the club's the club now. It's the Tigers. There's people growing up now who has only known this club as the West Tigers. So that's what you are. That's your identity. Pay homage to your heritage, obviously, and talk about that all the time, the Balmains and the Magpies, and throwback with jerseys and things like that. But just come together, guys, because nothing's going to change while this back of house crap is going on. Unfortunately, you can continue to recruit all that you want, but nothing will change. That does affect the front office. So the back office needs to make sure it is doing the right thing. But anyway, that's just my little 2 cents. I just feel for you Tigers fans out there. I really, really do. What about our realistic season expectations when it comes to the Tigers, boys? So we're going to do a bit of a post about our season predictions. We are going to try and squeeze in a season ladder prediction, but it's getting very tight. We've done some crunch some numbers during the week, so it's going to get very hard. So it might just be a post, but we don't want to wreck that yet. So don't tell me a number. Just give me sort of how you're thinking. So for me, just to give you guys a bit of an example, so my realistic expectation for the Tigers this year is they're going to be in and around that sort of 10th to 13th sort of area. That's sort of middle of the back half of the ladder. But they'll have moments where they're touching the top 8. They're either in there or right there, and challenge and giving them their fans reasons to believe that they could well be a top 8 team. But I think they're just going to fall slightly short. Jake?
I'm going 7 to 10. So I think there is a chance. There's absolutely a chance that they can make it. for sure. And I think that you're right that, Trav, that it is actually going to come down to them beating those sort of higher up teams and actually sort of surprising a few people. But I think that they can do it. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be able to do that.
Trav?
I've got them definitely in the bottom half, and I still think they're bottom half of the bottom half.
Ooh, there you go. Benji gone if that happens.